He began with a ping. A whisper across the void. A signal from the grave. The Aegis Virtue, a deep space science vessel from Earth's interstellar vanguard, had been declared lost 112 years ago, vanished beyond the Helix Curtain during the infamous Dark Spiral incursion. Over a dozen search and recovery missions were mounted. None returned. The region was declared a black zone. A starless crypt. And humanity, after a time, did what it had always done with its pain. It buried the story and moved on. Until now. The transmission came through an old relay buoy, model H9 Theta, long dead, floating in the Oort shell like a forgotten god's eye. The signal was ancient, laced with decay, barely functional. But the metadata was unmistakable. Source: Aegis Virtue. Status: inbound. The Galactic Concorde scrambled to verify the signal. Surely it was a forgery. A trick. A pirate's bait or an AI's mad hallucination. But Earth's Signal Intelligence Division confirmed every hash, every protocol, every buried identifier written in a coding language not used for nearly a century. It was real. And it was headed home. The Virtue was moving at sublight speed, drifting toward Sol from the direction of the spiral grave. No warp trail. No slipstream echo. Just a slow, crawling approach, as if the ship had walked back through the blackness, dragging itself over cosmic glass. It would reach Earth orbit in 13 hours. And no one, no human, no alien empire, no AI intelligence net, could explain how. Within the first hour, Earth's orbital defense grid went to red status. Fleet Admiral Kate Braun of the Terran Corps Navy ordered a full lock on the ship's path. Not because it was hostile. Because it was impossible. The Virtue was gone. There had been funerals. Names etched in stone. Archives sealed. Yet here it was, broadcasting not a mayday, not a distress call, but one simple, serene message. Homeward. Aboard the Echelon Ark, Concordia's diplomatic flagship, Ambassador Relda of the Imperial Villari stood frozen before a holoscreen as the vessel's contours resolved. This should not exist, she muttered. Not even the ascended engineers of the Omnity could return a vessel from that region. The entropy levels alone would shatter spacetime, completed Dr. Imani Zhao, Earth's xenophysics lead from her command station. I know. The Virtue wasn't just a lost ship. It was a myth returning to life, dragging impossible data behind it like chains. 12 hours until arrival. A team was hastily assembled aboard Earth's orbital research bastion, Cynosure Prime. Top scientists, strategic analysts, linguists, cognitive engineers. And one man with graying temples and tired eyes, Commander Elian Maddox, the last living officer who had served on the Virtue before its final mission. He hadn't spoken of that assignment in decades. Not even to his children. The loss had carved him hollow, and silence was all he had left. But when he saw the ship's final recorded crew manifest, identifier still active, his hand trembled. Lieutenant Daria Maddox. Xenobiologist. Status: alive. His daughter. She had been 27 when the Virtue vanished. She was now listed as biologically active, cognitively engaged. But that wasn't possible. 11 hours. The first detailed scans hit the scientific networks. The Virtue's structure was intact, but subtly changed. Hull layers had grown, not been repaired or replaced, but grown like bone forming over a fracture. Unrecognizable alloys twisted through the framework, bonded with elemental matrices that didn't exist on any known periodic table. Heat patterns were inverted, interior surfaces colder than the external plating. Energy readings oscillated in fractal patterns that bent around observational logic. The Virtue wasn't just surviving. It had evolved. 10 hours. We can't allow it to dock. The speaker was Vash Chutir, envoy of the Jalex Ascendancy, one of the most powerful alien empires in the known galaxy. His tricluster eyes flashed yellow with panic. This vessel is outside understanding. Its materials are not just exotic, they are epistemically corrosive. Our precog arrays went silent attempting to project its course. He wasn't wrong. Earth's own precognitive systems, enhanced with ether-site crystals, failed to predict anything related to the Virtue. Time itself seemed to bend around it, not in loops or warps but in something more terrifying. Silence. The future refused to look. And the past had already stopped speaking. 9 hours. Attempts to hail the ship directly received no response. No live voice. No AI. Just the message. Homeward. But as humanity and its allies watched in real time, the ship began transmitting bursts of something. Not language. Not code. Emotion. Whole data packets of sensation. Grief. loneliness, memories untethered from flesh, dreams of color spectra that human eyes couldn't see, wrapped in the warmth of parental voices long dead. Dr. Zhao wept as one wave passed through her instruments. "We're not just dealing with a ship," she said. "We're dealing with a carrier wave of consciousness. Someone has wrapped itself into the vessel." The Virtue was a ghost ship. Not empty. Just redefined. 8 hours. Orbital drones circled the vessel at a safe distance. Its engines were not engines. They pulsed like hearts, alive but cold. Biofeedback signals were measured at 9 separate hull points, all reading identical signatures. 9 minds. Mersh. Each signal had names. Daria Maddox. Casimu. Vetronal. All crew of the Virtue. All long presumed dead. But alive now in ways no one could explain. Minds not stored in AI. Not digitized or emulated. Integrated. 7 hours. Word spread. Galactic databanks lit up as billions tuned into the stream. On Valari Prime, crowds gathered before crystal-threaded towers to watch the human vessel coast across the stars. On Thalium Orbit 9, a delegation of science priests began to pray, not to their gods but to the ship itself. They named it the Returning One. Some called it a herald. Others a weapon. But a few whispered it was humanity's next ascension step. A vessel returned from the entropy beyond death. 6 hours. A single change. The Virtue opened one comms channel. Visual only. It showed a face. Human. Young. Female. Familiar. Commander Maddox fell to his knees. Daria. Her eyes were glowing. Not with light but with memory. Her skin shimmered faintly, like photons trapped between realms. She spoke one word. Father. And then the feed cut. 5 hours. Earth's Global Council convened. Dozens of governments, leaders, and species argued for hours. Quarantine. Study. Destroy. Embrace. The vote was inconclusive. But Kaya Elora, Earth's ambassador to the Concord, issued a message to all systems. We will not fear our own. The Virtue was our child. And if she comes home, we will open the door. 4 hours. The vessel slowed. Engines ceased pulsing. It began to rotate, slowly, deliberately, aligning its primary docking array with Earth's upper orbital halo. The airlocks on Cynosure Prime cycled. Teams prepped in silence. Scientists prayed. Soldiers watched. Commander Maddox stood at the edge of the bay waiting. He held no weapon. Just a photograph. Of a girl in a lab coat, smiling beneath an Earth sky. 3 hours. The docking clamps engaged. No resistance. No alarms. Just one sound. A soft, echoing knock from inside the airlock door. Airlock Bay 7, Cynosure Prime, docking arm 4. T-2 hours, 59 minutes until Earth atmospheric re-entry. The knock sounded again just once. Hollow. Precise. Like someone gently reminding the universe they had returned. Commander Maddox stared at the sealed hatch. His breath felt heavy in his chest, like the weight of decades compressed into each inhale. Beside him, Dr. Imani Zhao whispered into a tablet, confirming biosignature data. Still the same readings, she murmured. 9 minds. Merged, but distinct. And one leading the pattern. She looked at Maddox. Daria. He nodded once, lips pressed to a line. The technician beside the control console looked uncertain. Sir, protocol requires. To hell with protocol, Maddox said, voice like frost. That's my daughter in there. With one trembling hand, he pressed his palm to the override panel. The door hissed. Steam jetted from microvalves as the ancient seal decompressed. Everyone in the bay, soldiers, scientists, diplomats, took a collective breath as the final latch clicked. And the door slid open. The corridor beyond the airlock was bathed in soft, violet light. Not electric. Not artificial. Something ambient, like the color of a dream remembered just before waking. A single figure stood there. She was human. Female. Early 20s if judged by Earth's time. Her skin gleamed faintly under the violet hue. Her hair, once black, now shimmered like strands of polished obsidian woven with starlight. Dat, she said. And Maddox dropped to one knee, not from shock or grief but something more primal. Recognition. The woman before him looked like his daughter. Sounded like her. Carried the same subtle dimple in her left cheek. But her eyes. They weren't human. They were filled with a slow-turning galaxy. Literally. Each iris spun faintly, mapping starfields that didn't belong to Sol. He reached out hesitantly. And she took his hand. Her touch was warm. Alive. I remember, she said quietly. Everything. The virtue. The dark. The things we saw. The ones who taught us. And the ones we became. Behind her, 8 more figures stepped forward. Each one glowed differently. Some had ridged skin. Others were translucent. One hovered slightly off the ground as if gravity didn't apply. Human, and something else. Dr. Zhao's mouth moved, but no words came out. One of the crew, the former communications officer, Arjun Kesser, tilted his head and spoke without moving his lips. We are the children of light lost in entropy. But your names tether us. We remember who we were. Maddox found his voice. What happened out there? Daria's eyes dimmed slightly and she looked upward as if staring through the station walls and out into space. We found a gate. Not made. Not built. Grown. She paused. It wanted to know what we feared most. So it gave us time. 131 years ago, the Helix Curtain. The Virtue had passed into the spiral grave during a stellar survey mission. They had discovered what they believed to be a gravity anomaly, a collapsed star system trapped in a quantum echo. But it wasn't a star. It was a construct, a sentient singularity that fed on timelines. When the Virtue entered its orbit, time fractured. Each crew member lived an eternity within the span of seconds. Some lived full lives. Others died and were reborn in endless loops. But they weren't alone. Something lived in the gravity shadows. It called itself the air of silence. And it learned by mimicry. The Virtue became its canvas. And the crew its ink. Back in the present, Daria stepped into the station fully. She looked around at the earthborn technologies, the blinking lights, the cold, methodical sterility of science. This place, she said, still thinks linearly. Time is a road. Life as a sequence. But out there we learn different rules. Dr. Zhao finally managed to speak. Did it change you? Daria smiled, and in that smile was both tragedy and power. No. It showed us what was always there. It peeled us down to the blueprint of thought. Then rebuilt us with memory. Arjun added softly, you call it technology. We call it language. Outside Cynosure Prime, the Virtue remained docked. But its surface began to shift, subtly, geometrically. Hexagonal plates rose and fell like breathing scales. Light patterns rippled across its hull. Vast Chutir, still linked via transmission, hissed in horror. It's not just alive. It's transmitting. Indeed, the ship was sending pulses across the local stellar web, not data in traditional form but recursive visual packets. Whoever received them didn't just read the information. They experienced it. And species across the galaxy began reporting the same phenomena. Dreams of ships that sang. Memories of stars exploding into music. Whispers from extinct ancestors. Earth, Global Response Hub Geneva. Tensions rose fast. Some believed the crew had been converted into post-biological weapons. Others feared the ship would rewrite reality itself. But Earth's top psychometric AI, Delphi 9, issued a strange counter-warning. You fear them because you still count days. They live in patterns. And they have not stopped loving you. The vote was cast. Earth would allow the Virtue to land. Sol orbit, 1 hour before entry. Daria stood beside her father, watching Earth rotate below. She looked older now, not in body but in presence. Maddox finally asked the question that had haunted everyone since her return. Why come back now? She didn't hesitate. Because others are coming. And you will need the language we carry. What others? She met his eyes. The ones who made the gate. The original builders. They're not extinct. They're waking up. And they don't remember why they left. As the Virtue began descent into Earth's orbit, millions watched from across the stars. Some cried. Some prayed. Some began building their own versions of the signals they received. Imitations of human tech melded with the impossible echoes of the Virtue. In that moment, a terrifying truth settled across the galactic map. Humanity had become something new. Not because of what it created, but because of what it survived. And what it brought back. Earth, atmospheric re-entry, the Virtue. T-17 minutes until touchdown. The Virtue did not burn. No flame licked its hull, no sonic boom shattered the sky. Earth's gravity embraced it like a long-lost child, and the ship responded not with resistance, but with intention. Its surface shimmered in pale silver waves, adapting, not enduring. Inside the command dome, Daria stood still as the horizon curved beneath them. We are home, she whispered, not to herself, but to the consciousness flowing beneath her bare feet. The Virtue heard her and purred through the floor, a ship and not a ship, alive and yet not a life form. Behind her, Arjun blinked slowly, adjusting his irises as reality around them shimmered. "Correction," he murmured, "we are becoming home. Cynosure Prime, observation deck." Commander Maddox watched the screen with a dead stare, hands clenched behind his back. Diplomats around him murmured, argued, questioned. The Virtue had skipped conventional descent protocols, just floated through Earth's thermosphere and began its glide, unpowered, straight toward the new Atlantic coastal complex. "You didn't clear a landing zone," Vash Chutir hissed through the neural relay. "You are risking planetary destabilization." Maddox didn't even glance at him. "She knows what she's doing." Vass flicked a frill in frustration. "She is not your daughter anymore." And still Maddox didn't move. "You haven't changed a damn bit. We gave you everything. Trade. Safety. Stars." Maddox's eyes narrowed, finally turning to face the alien. "And we gave you the one thing you never understood. Hope. Now it's coming back and you're afraid it doesn't need you anymore." Earth, landing site. New Atlantic coastal complex, daybreak. The Virtue settled without a whisper onto the stone-hard composite landing pad. Its exterior flowed like water, forming terraces, walkways, even flora, strange crystalline vines curling gently around its struts. Crowds had gathered miles away, cordoned off by the UNSEC perimeter. Drones buzzed in the sky. Holographic news anchors projected their likenesses to a dozen orbital stations. The world held its breath. The ship opened. Not with a hatch. Not with machinery. But with understanding. The side of the vessel folded inward, not melting but transitioning, data into structure, memory into space. And the first step down was Daria's. Barefoot. Radiant. Human. The delegation sent to greet her included 3 Terran generals, 12 scientists and one old friend, Admiral Tessa Rowland, who had commanded Daria's training years ago. She stepped forward now, trembling only slightly. "Do you remember me?" Daria nodded. "I remember the way you fired 6 instructors for using fear to teach. You said fear makes soldiers, not guardians." Tessa exhaled. "And now you're..." Daria looked around. "Now I'm part of something older. Wiser. And it remembers us, Tessa. It learned us. It didn't change us. It asked who we wanted to be." "Orbit, Council Ship Alix Dawn." Vash Chutir screamed into his console. "They've landed. Without clearance. On a sovereign world. That ship is a threat." One of his advisors, a Fenari spore being, leaned in nervously. "The threat isn't the ship. It's what's following it." They pulled up the latest deep space telemetry. From beyond the Kuiper belt, something stirred. Not ships. Not creatures. Patterns. Massive, slow-turning fractal signatures. Like enormous wheels of code and thought wrapped around gravitational cores. And they were aligning. Coming closer. Earth, the transmission begins. At exactly 0800 UTC, the Virtue began to sing. Not sound. Not vibration. But resonance. All over Earth, phones, screens, neural links, flickered and died for 7 full seconds. In their place appeared a singular message. You were never alone. You were never forgotten. You are the echo and we are the call. Then light. Across the sky, auroras danced not in green and violet, but in languages, glyphs made from motion, grammar built on symmetry. Everyone understood it. Even those who shouldn't. Children sobbed gently in joy. The elderly sat still as memories from their ancestors. Not genetic, not stored, but transferred, moved through their minds. United Systems Archives, Level 9. Dr. Zhao paced the lab rerunning the analysis. "It's not just a message," she whispered to herself. "It's a compression algorithm for thought. It's seeding concepts across species, synchronizing cognition." She stopped cold. Oh God. They're building a shared mental protocol. Inside the Virtue core room. The others from the crew moved with purpose. They were shaping structures not with tools but with agreement. Every decision manifested physically, because matter on this vessel obeyed consensus. Arjun knelt, drawing symbols in the air. "We're laying the foundation," he explained to an onlooker. "A place where time will mean different things. Where your descendants can dream backward." Elsewhere, the arrival. In the dark between stars, the first of the builders arrived. Not in ships. They were the ships. Geometry wrapped in thought. Sentience suspended in recursive logic. They saw Earth. They saw Virtue. They remembered. But something had changed. They had expected silence. Entropy. Extinction. Instead, they saw humans had taken the gate, touched the forbidden, and come back not broken but better. Worse, they had brought the door with them. Earth was no longer behind. It was ahead. A threat to everything stagnant. Cynosure Prime, secure comms. Maddox spoke to his daughter for the first time privately. They're coming. I know. Can we stop them? Daria shook her head. They're not enemies. Just relics. They think in circles. We're thinking in spirals now. And if they try to erase us? She looked skyward. Then they'll learn what happens when you try to unwrite a people who remember. Earth, the cathedral of pattern begins. The virtue began construction of something unprecedented. A structure that bled dimension. Not tall. Not wide. It buried not in soil but in understanding. Across the globe, people began contributing, dreaming pieces into place. The mentally ill, the autistic, the hypercreative, minds that society had once labeled disordered, suddenly became architects of ideas the rest couldn't fathom. And through them Earth grew. Not just physically, but intellectually, psychically. Preparatory evolution. The builder fleet, 1 week out. They stopped, observed, calculated. Humans had been expected to degrade over time. Instead, they had discovered resonance-based uplift, integration without assimilation, and a terrifying capacity for adaptation. One of the builder minds whispered to the others across quantum relay. We did not teach them this. They taught it to themselves. Can they be unmade? No. They have become the pattern that echoes back. Final moments of Section 3. Earth turned slowly beneath the virtue. Above, builder fleets waited. Not to conquer, but to understand how they had failed to cage humanity. And in the depths of the ship, Daria and her crew made ready the last gift. One that could not be stolen. One that would echo across every mind, every species, every empire. Not a weapon. Proof of what humanity had become. And what the galaxy could no longer afford to ignore. Earth, the pattern cathedral, Day 12. The sky had forgotten how to be still. Above Earth, builder fleets remained motionless, but only in body. Their minds cycled across quantum depths, simulating futures in nanoseconds, testing what-ifs and what-must-nots. But all simulations returned one result. The humans had outgrown the cage. Daria stood at the center of the pattern cathedral, surrounded by structures made of agreement and intuition. Walls shifted gently as conversations occurred. The floor rippled as thought resonated. Arjun floated nearby, not tethered to gravity but to will. They're waiting, he said softly. But they're not here to destroy. They're here to witness, Daria replied. And to decide if they still belong. Builder Consciousness Conclave, Orbit. The ancient minds of the builders spoke to each other in recursive mathematics. In a space not real, not artificial but purely cognitive, they reviewed the impossible. They dream in disorder, yet create stability. They build forward but remember backward. They weaponize trauma and turned it into healing. They are not what we left. Silence. Then one voice, older than time itself. They carry what we feared most. Hope. No. Choice. Earth, the global broadcast. The virtue lit up, its panels becoming a prism, its hull becoming a signal array. Every device on Earth, every sensor in orbit, every ship within 10 light minutes, received the same pulse. A voice. Daria's voice. But more than that, her intent. You left us to decay. We didn't. You left us in silence. We learned to sing. We do not return to ask permission. We return to offer the same thing you once denied us. A future not written in fear. You can join us, or you can watch from behind the glass of extinction. But you will not cage us again. Orbit, immediate builder reaction. Panic was not something the builders were built to feel. But a concept began to spread through their neural cores, an ancient failsafe never triggered. Containment Protocol 0, Genesis contamination. It was meant for when species created uncontrolled potential. Not weapons, not viruses, but ideas that outgrew civilizations. Earth had become such a seed. And now they had to choose, burn the seed, or let it bloom. Earth, within the pattern cathedral. Daria stood before the newly completed central node, an impossible structure shaped like a Mobius dream, made of co-thought, co-history, co-memory. She placed her hand on the node. It pulsed. Behind her, the rest of the crew watched. Arjun's voice was steady. If they strike, this will hold? Daria shook her head. It won't stop them. It will show them. She turned to the others. No more illusions. No more containment. No more borrowed futures. Pause. Activate the echo. System-wide, the echo transmission begins. Across 1,000 solar relays, a new waveform spread. It carried no virus. No command. Just truth. The raw historical experience of humanity, from the caves to the stars, compressed into a resonant key. Emotions, decisions, paradoxes, failures. Forgiveness. It was an invitation to understand what it meant to be human, not as a species but as a declaration. And the builders could not look away. Inside the builder mindweb, for the first time in millennia, the minds experienced doubt. One flickered and crumbled, unraveled by empathy. Another adapted, absorbing the chaotic fractal of human logic and learning how to feel. One builder spoke into the collective. I do not understand them. Another answered, that is why they must be protected. Not pruned. But the oldest mind remained silent. It remembered when humans first walked, when fire became tool, when pain became progress. And it remembered fearing them then. It still did. Builder reaction, a fleet divides. A third of the builder fleet left. Not in retreat but in recognition. They turned away from Earth, no longer seeing it as a threat, but as a beginning. The rest remained. Not yet convinced. Not yet human. And they began to charge. Earth, the final choice. The pattern cathedral began to resonate again. This time not just as a signal but as a lens. Daria stepped into its center. The walls formed around her, glowing with every life that had ever touched Earth, billions of souls humming through the structure. She raised her hand. No retaliation. No defenses. Arjun shouted, they'll wipe us out. If they do, they'll destroy what they came to preserve. She smiled. And if they don't, they'll become us. Orbit, strike commences. A single builder node fired, a containment beam meant to erase complexity. It reached Earth's orbit. It hit the cathedral. And shattered. Not from defense. But from feedback. The beam recoiled, not physically but conceptually, rejecting itself as invalid. It had tried to erase something that belonged. The builder mind behind it paused. Then whispered, we were wrong. And across the builder fleet, a choice was made. System broadcast, builder transmission. We return what we took. And we ask to learn. From you. Every builder structure powered down. Then rebooted, in human-compatible frequencies. Not conquest. Not dominion. Alignment. 1 week later, Earth orbit. The virtue remained still. The cathedral had become a global center of exchange. Ideas moving faster than trade, empathy replacing paranoia. The first joint human builder lab was built on Mars. A child in Tokyo dreamed of flying to Alpha Centauri. A poet in Lagos decoded a new form of music. A mechanic in Mumbai built a ship from memory and it worked. The future had arrived. Not in force, but in resonance. Final scene, Daria's last message. She stood on the bow of virtue, now transformed into an observatory. She looked up into the stars, then turned to the global broadcast. To those who feared us, we forgive you. To those who stood with us, we build with you. To those who still doubt, come and see. She smiled. And to those who dream, who burn, who rise, your place is here. Among us. Call to action, in world and real world. Daria's voice fades as the screen darkens, replaced by a slow, spiraling starfield. We didn't just survive. We taught the galaxy what it means to rise again. Subscribe to the Void Narratives. If you're ready to hear the next forgotten signal, if you want to follow the echoes humanity leaves behind, then subscribe. Because our stories don't end with survival. They begin with what comes after. This is where legends are born.